What if I told you the war in the Middle East was the best thing that ever happened to Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping? In 2026, a single spark in Iran didn't just explode the oil market, it left Ukraine defenseless and gave China a live simulation for the invasion of Taiwan. While American missiles are busy in the Persian Gulf, the shadow fleet is moving, and the map of the world is being redrawn in real time. We are witnessing the birth of a new world order. The oil jackpot, Russia's financial windfall. In early 2026, Russia was in big trouble. The war in Ukraine was costing them billions, and the West had cut off their income. The West set a $60 price cap on Russian oil, limiting how it could be sold using global shipping systems. It initially hurt Russia's revenues. Russia's bank account was running dry. They were almost broke. But on February 28, everything changed. The US and Iran started a direct war. To fight back, Iran did the one thing the world has feared most. They blocked the Strait of Hormuz. This tiny path of water is where 20% of the world's oil travels. Suddenly, the world lost its 20% oil supply. And when something is hard to find, the price goes up. In just 3 days, oil jumped from $80 to $150 a barrel. While Middle Eastern ships were stuck in the war zone, Russia was ready. For years, they had been building a shadow fleet, hundreds of secret, old ships that don't follow Western rules of price. These ghost ships started moving Russian oil across the world. Because the world was desperate for fuel, Russia started with new high price. Everyone started buying Russian oil at the new high price. Here is the crazy part. This war is a disaster for almost everyone. Across the globe, gas prices are hitting record highs, and families are struggling to pay their bills. The world is facing an economic crisis. The last time the world saw a shock like this was 1973, but this time, there is no escape. But for Russia, this war crisis is a goldmine. Global oil supply is down 20%, while Russian oil profit has increased by 100%. The US has spent billions on war costs as Russian revenue reaches $9 billion per month. The world economy is slowing down, while the Russian war chest stands at $160 billion. If we see Russian economy, they were making about $4.5 billion a month in January 2026 from oil, which not enough to sustain a long war in Ukraine, but after war start, that number jumped to $9 billion a month. That is double the money with the same amount of oil. The Ukraine distraction. While Russia is getting rich from oil, they are also winning on the battlefield. But not because they are stronger at this point. It's because Ukraine's biggest helper is now distracted. For years, the US sent billions of dollars in advanced weapons like Patriot missiles to Ukraine to stop Russia. But the war of US with Iran changed the priority. The US Navy now needs those same missiles to protect their own ships in the Middle East. Here is the simple truth. The US cannot fight two big wars at the same time. Every missile fired at an Iranian drone is one less missile sent to protect a city in Ukraine. As the US moves its focus to the Middle East, Ukraine is being left alone. For Vladimir Putin, this distraction is even better than the oil money. While the world looks at Iran, Russia is quietly pushing forward in Ukraine, taking advantage of a sky that is no longer protected by American weapons. The China strategic play, the Taiwan blueprint, while Russia counts its money and the US fires its missiles at Iran. There is a third player watching everything from the shadows, it's China. For years, China has been planning to take control of Taiwan. But they were always afraid of one thing. How would the US military respond? Now they are getting the answer for free. To Beijing, the war in Iran isn't just a conflict, it's a live simulation. China is watching how Iran's cheap drones and missiles are attacking expensive US assets, how Iran can keep the US Navy busy with $20,000 drones. China's biggest advantage is a distracted America. Every hour the US spends planning a war in Iran is an hour they are not thinking about Taiwan. China knows that the US military is stretched thin. They are waiting for the moment when the US is too tired and low on ammunition to protect the Pacific. To China, the Iran war is a golden opportunity to move their ships closer to Taiwan while nobody is looking. While the rest of the world struggles with ships blocked in the Middle East, Iran is still sending oil, specifically to China. But that's not all. China has also spent years building massive land pipelines from Russia. Because they are now best friends, Russia is sending China all the oil they need at a special low price. Basically, while the world pays record high prices, China is getting a massive discount, but here is the most clever part of China's plan. China doesn't just use Iranian oil, they process it. Small, private refineries in China, known as teapots, China take this cheap, sanctioned oil from Iran and Russia. They filter it in teapots and turn it into refined products like diesel, gasoline, and chemicals. Then they sell these finished products back to the world market at a much higher price. China has built an energy shield. They are safe, they are learning, and they are waiting. While the West gets weaker in the Middle East war, China is getting ready for the real prize, Taiwan. The Iran's choke point, the global economy trap after blocking Hormuz, its effects on energy wide at its narrowest point. But 20% of the world's oil and 25% of the world's gas pass through here every single day. When the war started on February 28th, Iran did the unthinkable. They effectively shut it down. Suddenly, 20 million barrels of oil were stranded. In just a few weeks, the price of Brent crude exploded to over $120 per barrel. But this wasn't just about oil for your car. This was a trap for the entire global economy. Second, the grocery emergency. Because most food and water in the Middle East is imported through this Hormuz, countries like Qatar and the UAE faced an immediate food crisis. Prices of basic groceries jumped by 40% to 120%. It wasn't just a fuel war anymore, it was a survival war. Third, the grocery time bomb. Here is the part most people missed. The Strait is also the world's fertilizer choke point. 25% of global fertilizer exports pass through here. Without it, farmers in America and Europe can't grow crops. This means the war in Iran today will lead to even higher food prices in your supermarket tomorrow. Fourth, the water crisis. In the Middle East, there isn't much fresh water. Countries like Dubai and Qatar get their drinking water from the sea using giant desalination plants. During the war, these plants became targets. Without power from gas or safe access to the sea, these plants stopped working. Suddenly, millions of people weren't just fighting for oil, they were fighting for a glass of water. It turned a resource war into a human survival crisis. Fifth, the finance collapse. Finally, the damage reached the banks. When the Strait of Hormuz closed, the world's money machine broke. Investors got scared and started selling everything. In April 2026, global stock markets, like the Nikkei in Japan and the Kospi in Korea, began to crash. Why? Because these countries depend entirely on Middle Eastern oil energy. Without it, their factories stop, their shops close, and their economy sinks. This tiny water path didn't just stop ships, it stopped the world's wealth. The energy supply is stranded, pushing Brent oil prices to $120. Food and fertilizer exports are blocked, leading to higher food prices. In Middle East water, desalination plants attacked water security risks. Due to these impacts, global stock markets are now crashing. The Hormuz trap is now complete. By blocking this one tiny path, Iran has put a chokehold on the entire planet. As ships sit still and prices keep climbing, the world economy is slowly dying. It is the perfect checkmate. The US and Europe are stuck in a nightmare they cannot escape. But while everyone else is trapped, Russia and China are the only ones with a back door to stay rich and powerful. The axis of evasion. For decades, the US dollar was the king of the world. If you wanted to buy oil or trade goods, you had to use American money. But the war of 2026 changed everything. Russia, China, and Iran have formed a secret alliance. Some call it the axis of evasion. Their goal is simple: to trade with each other while completely ignoring the United States and its rules. Russia and Iran send sanctioned oil to China. China sends technology to Iran and Russia. They are trading in their own currencies, the yuan and the ruble. This means US sanctions, which used to be a nuclear weapon for the economy, no longer work. This isn't just about a war in the Middle East or Ukraine anymore. It is about a new world order. While the West was busy fighting fires in the Strait of Hormuz, these three nations were building a new system. A system where the no longer dollar used. The checkmate we saw in the oil markets was just the beginning. The war of 2026 affects global economy. The war of 2026 didn't just affect global economy. The world has been split in two, and for the first time in history, the ghost ships and the shadow fleets are the ones steering the future. What Ru thinking about this war? Do comment. Thanks for watching. Do subscribe.